All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of James Bond Bitcoin Live 0021. And today I have a new guest here. His name is Peter. Please, Peter, please introduce yourself to the rest of the audience.
What's up, guys? My name is Peter Saddington, aka BiteSizeBitcoin, and I love sharing all the knowledge that I've gained over investing heavily in Bitcoin for the last 3.5 years. And so I love sharing it, and I love growing community, and I love everyone getting on the spaceship, guys. Getting on the spaceship so we can all blast off to the moon and succeed together. That's why I'm here, guys.
Excellent. And Brian's here with us, but he's busy ordering Taco Bell for his crew. Oh, there he is. Say hello, Brian.
There he is. That's
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to the show tonight, Peter. We're glad to have you on.
Yeah, and order me a burrito supreme, please, while you're there.
Gotcha.
All right.
No problem.
Okay. All right.
That's what's
Even
up, guys.
He's in New York and I'm in Houston, he'll order me a burrito supreme. Awesome. All right. All right, Peter, we're going to focus on you a little bit today since you're our special guest here. And so you've been doing this for 3 years, but recently I've seen your videos pop up in my feed, and that's how I got to watching your videos and everything. Tell us how you got into Bitcoin 3 years ago, or cryptocurrency in general.
Sure. Actually, we have to actually go even farther back. I bought my first Bitcoin in 2011 at $2. And I bought a lot of it, and I didn't know what to do with it. There was a couple of nefarious things that I used it for, which I won't describe, using, Tor and Onion and all that stuff. And then I kind of forgot about it. And I woke up one day in 2014 and I heard the news that it spiked up to like 1,000. And I was like, what is going on? So I went in, logged into Tor, logged into my wallet, and I was like, holy crap, I have like a lot of money right now. And so in 2014, I really started getting involved in cryptocurrency. I'm a trained, for those who don't know anything about my background, I'm a trained scientist. So I have 3 master's degrees. I have a master's in counseling and organizational behavior. I have a master's in education, cognitive learning theory, and I have a master's in religion, focusing on apologetics. So as a trained scientist, I was supremely intrigued as to how I made so much money so quickly, and trying to understand this new nascent technology called Bitcoin. And so about 3.5 years ago, I started investing really heavily using pretty simple dollar cost averaging, investing every week like clockwork, every month like clockwork in certain coins. And finally, someone told me about a year ago, they're like, dude, I mean, you've made a shit ton of money. Shouldn't you, don't you think you should help other people? And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. And so I slowly started creating a YouTube channel and just kind of talking about what I love about Bitcoin and how what I've learned about Bitcoin. My channel is focused mostly on kind of the philosophy and the technological underpinnings of what makes Bitcoin so powerful, as well as some trading tips now and again. But I'm not one of those, makes them, here's some short-term trades, here's some short-term gains, here's how you can manipulate the market and understand the market. And that's not really my thing. My thing is really long-term hodling, guys, long-term hodling, and enjoying the ride up, and really being what I would consider a self-proclaimed apologist for Bitcoin. I believe in the long-term viability of it. I believe it's never going to go away. It cannot be uninvented. That's kind of like my tagline, is Bitcoin can't be uninvented. And so I am supremely confident in the long-term viability of Bitcoin, and that's why I'm here. I love to share it. I want everyone to win too.
Now, when you say you're an apologist, does that mean you apologize for everything that you've done so far?
Well, if you look up an apologist is someone who is generally referred to in the context of like religious considerations. And so an apologist in a faith would be someone who can defend the faith with rational and logical argumentation. And so I've spent the last 3.5 years studying Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, decentralized networks, understanding the underpinnings of the technology, so that I can be a better apologist or defender of the faith of Bitcoin. I find that if we can understand the philosophical and technical and fundamental underpinnings of what makes Bitcoin work, then you should have no problem whatsoever investing in Bitcoin, because you will be supremely confident that it will be around for the long term. And so far, if I could put anything from 2011 to 2017, I guess the last 6.5 years or so, I think I've been winning. So I'm hoping that this trajectory will continue forward.
Oh, that's good to hear. I'm glad you explained what an apologist is. So you have nothing to apologize for, really.
No.
You've done everything right, right? Why should you say sorry?
Well, yeah, well, again, it's been such a whirlwind of a ride since, I've been heavily invested since 2014. So really the last 3.5 years, it's just been such a wild ride, and enjoying every aspect of it. A big focus of mine. So I worked, a little bit of more context here, guys. I worked at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta, the CDC, as a data scientist. And so I look at the markets, I look at all the technical analysis from a data scientist vantage point. I don't look at it from the general technical analysis that most people and traders and stock traders look at it. I look at it in large aggregate data sets so I can understand patterns and shifts within the market. And what that enables me to do is understand different levers to pull so I can make really, really good calls. I made a fucking good call. I'm sorry, can I curse on this?
Yes, you can.
Okay, I made a really good call based on my analysis when it dipped about 2 weeks ago. Bitcoin dipped to about 1,800, and I said, holy crap, like all my analysis is telling me that this is it. This is the bottom threshold. And so I put 10 grand into it at $1,900 on the button. Man, it was such a good feeling. And now obviously we're back up to like 25, 27 right now. I'm expecting Bitcoin to hit 5,000 by the end of the year. That's my statistical projection based on my aggregate models. So I'm supremely confident that we're all, if you join us, if you join James Bond, guys, if you follow James Bond, you're gonna make a shit ton of money. So you're in the right place.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that. And we have not talked at all, like in the conversation or anything, other than I leave comments in your channel until today, right? I mean, I want people to know that I didn't coerce you to say any of this stuff or anything, because I also have been making predictions of $5,000 as well. And it just seems, if you just look at the chart, I mean, it's kind of like a no-brainer. I always say it's a no-brainer if you just look at the chart. Just look at it. It should tell you where the price is going, right up. So let me ask you, like, how much? I'm glad you're an apologist here, because I've just learned something new. How much of Bitcoin really is faith? I mean, because really the thing doesn't really exist at all anywhere except in your mind.
That's a really great question. Actually, that was some of the first videos that I did, is helping people understand kind of the philosophical underpinnings of what Bitcoin really is. So let's go way back, guys. Let's go way back. So the first question you really have to ask yourself is, what is money? What is money? And the answer is a lot. Most people can't answer that question. Like, if you were to ask someone, like, what is money to you? And they'd think for a moment. Trust me, I've asked people, like, what is money to you? And they think for a moment, and they're like, it's something I exchange for stuff. It's like, okay, you don't get it. Let me tell you what money is. Money is trust. That's what it is. Money is trust. Three things. Money is trust that the expected artifact, we call it a dollar bill, the expected artifact has some semblance of value that can receive some material item in return. Number two, you trust that the dollar today is worth $1 tomorrow. And the third part of that trust of money is that it creates a relational bond between the giver and the receiver. So what money really is it's an abstraction of a relational dynamic between individuals, saying, this is, I don't know how to trust you other than use this extrapolation called a dollar bill. And so what we've seen in the market, obviously with the Fed and with the governments, is we've seen that second layer of trust being broken, is that the dollar today is no longer worth the same amount tomorrow. And I speak at a couple conferences around Bitcoin, and I do private consulting around Bitcoin technology as an entrepreneur. And I often help people understand it this way. I say, hey, if I were to tell you that I'm going to take 50% of everything that you've made in the next 10 years, would you be happy with me? And they always look at me like, no, I'd be really pissed if you took 50% of everything that I earned in the next 10 years. And I said, that's exactly what the Fed is doing. That's exactly what our government is doing, is they are reducing the viability and the value of your current stored value, your dollars, your cash, every year. And so Bitcoin is a trustless apparatus where we don't have to trust people, but we allow the decentralization of the market to continue to ensure that this Bitcoin, we're calling it a Bitcoin now, is a consistent entity within our experiences today. And so that's why I trust far more in Bitcoin than any other fiat currency, because fiat currencies are controlled, whereas Bitcoin is not controlled. So for me, that was one of the biggest selling points in 2014 when I started researching it. I said, hey, this is something that can't be controlled by a centralized authority. It's permissionless. There's no requirements. You don't have to ask for permission. You don't have to ask to do anything. There's no. It's just an awesome system. So I became enthralled with it, and it's one of those things where I essentially became kind of what's the word? Obsessed. I guess the word is obsessed. I became obsessed with it. So I'm finishing up.
You fell in the rabbit hole. That's what happened. You fell pretty deep too.
I did. What Bitcoin became is my fourth master's degree, I think.
So you got three masters, and you're working on mastering Bitcoin right now.
Yes, I've written 2 books, and I'm going to be writing my 3rd book on Bitcoin. So look out for it, guys. Yeah.
Wow. You can utilize the degrees you already have.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
No, it just sounds like his chosen fields lend to him having great insight into a lot of aspects of Bitcoin. Right.
It seems to. We have a few questions from the audience. I asked them, and let me ask their question is. Does he have? Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. What coins does he recommend to buy besides Bitcoin? Everyone wants to know what altcoins to buy, but go ahead and answer that. I know you're into altcoins, but you have a different aspect on altcoins than versus Bitcoin. But
yes, I do. So if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see, because I'm all about radical transparency. I think that's been a theme of mine for years as a scientist. Obviously, that kind of grew out of being a scientist. Whenever I create a study, it has to be peer reviewed. It has to be ripped apart by other people. And so you really have to understand your shit before you publish a paper on biological study or a cultural anthropological study. And so I've had my ass ripped apart before. And so part of kind of the ethos of my YouTube is radical transparency. So if you go to my YouTube, you'll see a video that I posted showing what I call my active trading account. It's about $50,000 in Exodus, and then I have about $7,000 to $10,000 in my Bittrex account. And so what I do in that video is I show everyone, the world, hey, this is all the money that I'm working with right now. I got all my Bitcoin that I stored up from 2011, 2014 in a Trezor and in a Ledger Nano S, so I don't mess with that. But I actively trade with about $100,000 to $150,000 a month, and so the vast majority of it is in Bitcoin. But if you go to my website, if you go to fintechgroupinc.com, if you click on the link Markets, you'll see all the top 10 altcoins that I'm following. Things like Stratus, Siacoin, NEM, I think Neo. Oh, actually, let me go there right now. I don't even remember all the coins I'm following.
Right. But all your links, I just want to let the audience know your links to your Twitter, your Facebook, your newsletter, your website is all in the notes section, so they can go check that out.
Yeah, so I'll just name off a couple. So big into obviously Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin. Let's see, Doge. Big fan of Doge, guys. I love Doge. Golem, Stratus, Steam, Siacoin. Yeah, so I'm big into altcoins. I really use altcoins as a mechanism for short-term gains. So, for example, if I look at my account right now, I'm probably going to be cashing out of Augur. So Augur, I've made, let's see, $375 in Augur in the last 2 days. So I'll probably cash out about 150 bucks of that tonight, just to do some profit taking. But other than that, I never sell Litecoin. And I never sell Bitcoin. Everything else I sell all the time. I don't have any confidence in a lot of those altcoins out there, but I merely use them as a mechanism to trade and make money.
Now, when you say you sell them, do you sell them for fiat? I did see a video where you did cash out, but
Yep.
Do you also try to get more Litecoin and more Bitcoin out of those altcoins as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you'd like, I can talk to you about why I am only bullish on Bitcoin and Litecoin if your audience is interested in understanding that.
Of course, please.
So we have to understand. Okay, so we have to understand the fundamentals of Bitcoin. So Litecoin is a fork off of Bitcoin, but it also includes SegWit, right? And so what Bitcoin really is fundamentally a mathematical proposition. It's a mathematical proposition that fortunately cannot be hacked, albeit it's very slow. So how I look at Bitcoin is like COBOL. So I'm a software developer, software engineer as well. And so I look at Bitcoin as COBOL and kind of Litecoin as like a COBOL 2.0. Now, are these archaic and draconian technologies? 100%. However, they ain't going away. Yes, they're slow, they're lethargic, they're not effective all that well at scale, but they're a mainstay within the overall apparatus of cryptocurrency. What you have with Ethereum, and so I'm going to be doing a video on this a little bit later because people keep asking me about it, but the problems that I have with Ethereum come from an app developer standpoint and an app developer vantage point. The problem is that you have an application layer on top of the core architecture of Ethereum. This is foolery, guys. This is absolute foolery. Putting an application layer on core architecture for a coin is like putting an application layer on a pen, right? This pen doesn't need an application layer. But if you put an application layer on top of this pen, what you do is you allow for a huge attack surface for hacking. And so what you will never see the end of, guys, what you will never see the end of is hacks on Ethereum, which is why I only use Ethereum to make a shit ton of money, but I rarely hold Ethereum. I buy in and I sell, I buy in and I sell, but I rarely hold Ethereum or Ethereum-based coins for very long. I'm just using them to buy and trade and make money. But I think the underpinnings of the core architecture and the application layer above Ethereum creates a problem that I don't think Vitalik Buterin really thought out well, which is no more evidence in the DAO. The DAO was the most epic example of poor planning in application development.
Okay, and let me just go down some of the other questions. I want to go through some of these questions, and then we'll go into other things here. Let me see. Does he have a spacesuit ready? Do you have a spacesuit ready to go to the moon?
Yo, you guys, if you guys follow me, if you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel, man, I got spacesuits for days, guys. And I got a spacesuit for you, James Bond. I got a spacesuit for you, bro.
Brian. We need one for Brian. He's gonna
and Brian, even though I can't see him. I got a spacesuit for Brian too.
Nice,
man.
nice.
Next time I'm up in New York, I go up to New York a lot. So, and I also go up to Dallas and Houston a lot. So next time I'm out there, Brian, man, we should hang out, bro. Seriously.
Here's another one. They want to know, did you just say that you're also a software engineer as well?
Yes, actually, my first job in 1997 was a Java developer in Johnson & Johnson in New Brunswick, New Jersey. So I started my life as a software developer for 3.5 years, and then I realized that I wanted to learn more in software development. At that point, I felt like I'd learned enough about Java, C#, HTML, and Flash, all the Flash that I needed to know. So I decided to pivot and change my career and move into entrepreneurship and science.
Okay, here's one more question, then we'll go on to some other stuff. But I figure why not? Let's ask: is he Satoshi Nakamoto? Are you Satoshi Nakamoto?
Yo, if I was Satoshi Nakamoto, yo, I wouldn't be doing YouTube. I'd be sitting in an island rolling in BTC all day, guys. That's all I'd be doing. I'd be throwing up them BTCs, man.
So I guess that's a no. You're not. You know. So.
I wish I was, yo.
Sorry, he's
Craig
just
Wright
plain
says
old
he is,
Peter.
I don't agree. I know, just me, guys, just me.
All right, that's good. Now, I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about, I guess you in general. When I watch all your videos, you like have a shit load of cars, man. Is that the result from
Yes.
from all the early Bitcoins that you bought, or do you just love cars?
So yeah, so I have built 12 startups. I've built 12 startups since 1997. 10 of them have failed epically. However, 2 of them have been privately acquired. And so what those private acquisitions of those startups have availed me is another passion of mine, which is exotic supercars. So I have a pretty significant collection of those.
Any Lambos yet?
Dude, yeah, of course.
Oh, how many Lambos?
Didn't you see there? I have a video in my where there's the R8 and there's the red Lamborghini in my garage. So you gotta go back. You gotta go back in history, man. You gotta go find that one.
Okay, so you got 2 Lambos. So you're making out pretty good.
I'm doing all right.
And that's just the company that you made and you sold, right? That has nothing to do with Bitcoin yet.
No.
Okay.
No, sir.
All right. So eventually you'll probably buy a spaceship with Bitcoin.
I'll be honest with you. I would like to be the first person to create a video where I'm cashing out Bitcoin to actually buy a $375,000 Lamborghini. And I could do it too, but I'm waiting. I'm hodling.
Oh, you want to do that 1 Bitcoin for a Lamborghini deal? That's what I'm waiting for too.
Yes.
Or maybe even better, like a 0.1 for 1 Lamborghini. That's what I'm waiting.
Yo, it's gonna happen, guys. It's gonna happen, and don't take it from me. I'm no expert. I've only been seriously studying it for about 3.5 years. So don't.
Oh, did you mute yourself? Did we lose you?
No, I'm here. There are guys out there who are significantly more educated and informed about this than I am. But I truly believe in my heart of hearts that in the next 10, 15 years, we could see a $250,000 to $500,000 Bitcoin because of the laws of the economics that surround it, right? It's 21 million cap. Supply and demand, simple economics tells us that people are going to be hodling and holding these things as a store of value, which we can already see within the market as a behavior pattern that is easily measured within the market right now. So if that behavior pattern within the mass market continues, then the supply will diminish and the value will increase. And so if that is going to be continuing the case, then I really think that in the next 10, 15 years, we're going to be seeing a $250,000 to $500,000 Bitcoin. And that's why I'm buying up as many as I can every time I get the opportunity.
Wow, that's good news. You're like the first person who I've heard actually say that, like are really adamant about that. A lot of people kind of talk about it, but they don't really. I don't know if they really do it. Then they start pushing altcoins, then they start pushing cloud mining, and then they start pushing all this Ponzi and pyramid scheme. It gets really strange in this space.
So and thanks for bringing that up, James. Guys, for many people, crypto is not only a new and nascent arena and market, but most people have only jumped into crypto in the last year. And so you just have to go back in time and history a little bit. If you bought Bitcoin when I bought Bitcoin at 2011 and you saw it grow to 2014 with that massive explosion, and you saw and you were following Reddit, you were following all the online forums, you would clearly see the pattern, and the pattern is simply one thing: Bitcoin is growing and Bitcoin is not going away. According to the Bitcoin obituaries, Bitcoin has died 140 times as of today. And so if something has died 140 times over the last 8 years, but it continues to resurrect and not go away, guys, there's something there. You can't destroy this thing, man. It's going to be there forever. It's going to be a mainstay fixture within the macro economy.
When it arises after its 144th death, that's when I'll feel the most safe.
Brian, that's his special number. He's figured out that's you want to explain that 144 number, Brian?
I think I know where you're going with that, but explain it.
Well, so all these crypto Ponzi's, I did some analysis of them, and I was able to calculate based on the data they give you from the ROI when they would go dark. And I was able to do that accurately for a couple of sites. But then I started affecting my experiments because I was trolling and I threw it all off. But anyway, I found that 1.44 times the ROI, the amount of days it takes you to get back your initial investment, will be the lifespan of the Ponzi scheme. So that'll give
I'm writing notes down.
Yeah, so like if you get 1% return, that Ponzi scheme should last 144 days from its date of point of origin. Now, there are different things that some of them do, like they'll say, oh, we're going down for maintenance, because they have different levels of buy-ins. Like if you buy more, you get it cheaper, so it's less per gigahash or whatever, you know, gigahash.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's. I'm very curious about this. This is
you'll get
interesting
different dates whenever you do the different levels of buy-ins, and you'll see at the cheapest level of buy-in is where it'll like is supposed to crash the soonest. But on sites, they'll say things like a few days beforehand, oh, we're doing some maintenance, or we've given it a facelift, or we've added a feature, and then it survives on until the next limit, until it finally gets to the lowest level of investment, and that's where you calculate how long it's going to live, and that's when it actually dies.
Interesting.
Also,
interesting.
Peter,
I'm taking notes.
You've got to get that $50,000 off of your Exodus wallet. It's only a 12-word phrase. You need like 18 or 24, man. Well, to me, 50,000 is a huge, monumental amount of money. So,
yeah, I'm kind of being facetious when I say that. Hey, you guys, I'm showing it to you guys. I got 12 passcode phrase, but you guys don't know how I'm really holding stuff. Yo, I got 5 of these suckers. I got 5 of these suckers. This one's not even opened. Maybe that tells you how much I'm storing.
12 words are just not enough for anybody to feel secure. That's all I'm saying.
No, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there with you.
Now
I
Peter,
move that stuff so fluidly. Yeah, what's up?
let's go into the hard fork or potential hard fork and this whole splitting of the chain. Since you've got a lot of coins, what are you doing with your coins and in preparation of this? Maybe it hasn't happened yet, obviously, but there's potential that it will. What are your plans? Obviously, you're not. I'm hoping you don't have a lot of coins on the exchanges, but what are you doing right now in preparation for that?
To be honest, I think I have about $7,000 within exchanges, but it's all altcoins. It's not Bitcoin, which is really what I care about. Now, remember, guys, don't take everything that I say with a grain of salt. When I say that I don't care about that $7,000 in the exchange, trust me when I say it, I really don't. It's not because I can afford to lose it. It's just because I literally live by what everyone else says they live by, but they don't live by, which is don't play with money that you can afford to lose. I put money in that I can completely afford to lose, and if I lose it, I don't care about it. So when it comes to the exchanges, I keep altcoins on there, and I don't feel pressure to move them off because I own so many different types of altcoins. It is just a nightmare to have wallets for each of those, so I just keep them all in exchange. I do take, however, all my Litecoin and all my Bitcoin off of every exchange religiously, and I put them all into these things, Ledger Nano S's and Trezors and these types of things. And so with these impending hard fork, or guys, I did a video on this. You saw my video on James on forking, right? The truth about forking.
I may have seen it, but please.
Okay, I'll reiterate it real quick. So I did a video about the truth about forking, and the truth is that most people don't understand is that Bitcoin forks all the time. If you actually look at the blockchain and you actually look at the code that's running all the time throughout the blockchain, you'll see that the blockchain actually forks about 2 to 3 times a week. This is a standard practice. What happens if one node gets an invalid transaction, for example, what it will do, it will broadcast it out to the rest of the nodes. The rest of the nodes will validate that. If it doesn't work, then it'll realign to the right chain. And so Bitcoin forks all the time in small ways. And so what we call this hard fork, the more appropriate word for it, or the more scientific word for it, is called a contentious fork. And so this contentious fork is not a natural occurrence that happens within the ecosystem. Rather, it's forced by humans or outside entities putting it in. And so for me, having gone through since 2011, 2014, and now 2017, seeing how many forks happen naturally within the ecosystem, as well as the forks, the contentious forks that have been created, let me tell you guys this. I worry zero about any type of user-activated soft fork or hard fork. I worry about it Not at all. Why? Because if you invested in Bitcoin in 2011 at $2 and it's $2,700 today, do you give a shit about the fork?
Well, I know you don't give a shit about the fork, but probably some other people who invested recently, they may have. And when you say they Bitcoin forks all the time, you're talking about like orphan blocks. Is that what you're talking about? Like, yeah, that happens all the time. But this one is actually gonna. You're right. It's being manipulated to continue in parallel with the existing chain for the most part.
Right. So what you're talking about is Bitcoin Cash, right?
Yeah, Bitcoin Cash in particular is what we're talking about. And if it does happen, what are you going to do with your coins? And do you even plan on splitting them at all?
Great question. So let's catch everyone up on the fundamentals of Bitcoin Cash. So Bitcoin Cash, most people thought the fork would only happen if BIP 148 were able to split the network. And so what Bitcoin Cash essentially is a contingency from the contentious user-activated soft fork. Now that we have BIP 91 activated, which is the first part of SegWit 2x, locked and ready to go before BIP 148, BIP 148 should have prevented the fork. However, BCC and the higher ups over in China want to split it off ahead of the August 1st deadline. So BCC, from my assumptions, will be a new fixture in the market. It will be a new coin that you can buy. I think it's currently trading at about 400 on the futures exchange. And the reason for BCC was not everyone was happy with SegWit. Therefore, BCC, in a nutshell, was an appeal to the segment of Bitcoin users who didn't like SegWit, which means BCC, the block will be upgraded to 8 megabytes. It offers replay and wipeout protection. Don't believe that, by the way. Don't believe that. It does not truly offer replay and wipeout protection. And apparently it's supposed to offer better proof of work and faster than BTC. So that's, if you were to pause that and rewind it for later, you guys can understand kind of how this all comes together in terms of its context. Now, what am I doing? I'm removing all my Bitcoin from any network completely. And so what I'm going to be doing is going to be waiting 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, after kind of the dust settles down, I will probably transfer some of this to Bittrex, because I believe Bittrex is going to be creating accounts for BCC or Bitcoin Cash after the fork. And so when you put Bitcoin back into Bittrex, it's going to split it off into Bitcoin and then Bitcoin Cash. I will most likely be holding it. My hope, and this is probably not shared by many people, my hope is that after the 2 week kind of timeline of sorts, that Bitcoin Cash will die out. Unfortunately, I think they have 4% of the hash rate right now. And so I believe they will continue to persevere. And I think it'll just be another altcoin, or be considered another altcoin. I'm not too interested in it. It's not something that I think is interesting at all. I don't think they're solving any types of problem. And to be honest, I think it's just a pump and dump for them, which in terms of a free market capitalist, I'm totally okay with. I don't think it's fair, but at the same time, as a free market capitalist, they can do whatever the hell they want.
So are you going to hold on to your Bitcoin Cash? Is that what you said? You're not going to try to dump it and get more Bitcoin?
No, I got other shit to do.
Okay. All right. So that's a good approach, because I think a lot of people are trying to buy Bitcoin right now, or they have their Bitcoin. They may be trying to send it to these exchanges, which I think is a very dangerous proposition, because we don't know what's going to happen. And so just so they can have Bitcoin Cash and it potentially either buy or sell or dump or try to game the system on this supposed free money that they're getting. I'm in the same boat with you. Yeah. I'm going to keep mine offline, that's where I've been keeping it, and I'm just going to wait. And unlike you, I'm probably going to dump depending on where it goes, but I'm probably going to dump the Bitcoin Cash, because I think it's going to be an altcoin. It's hard for me to see that it's like all the other forks of Bitcoin that have come around. They're just going to, whatever it's going to do, then it's slowly going to just die off as people cash out in it. I can't see how it could just take off and all of a sudden it's going to be up there with Bitcoin, where almost half the ecosystem is totally rejecting Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah. Well, what I'm hoping is simple basic economics will prevail. And what I mean by that, in basic market economics, if it's not solving a problem within the market, then the market will decide whether it's viable or not. And so what I'm hoping is that the market will decide that this is not a viable altcoin to have because it has no pragmatic value. It's not solving any problems. It's just a fork off of Bitcoin. And I'm hoping market economics will prevail, which means it will die out. And so that's why for me, with the amount of Bitcoin that I own, it is not worth any type of risk to be moving that type of, coinage to exchanges just so I can make, a couple grand here and there on a trade. It's for me, it's just not worth it.
You can split your Bitcoin without going on to the exchange.
That's true. That's true.
So you could just split it up and still have it in cold storage and just split off the Bitcoin Cash and dump it, and then get yourself more Bitcoin, bro. That's what it's all about.
How about this? If it gets stable and it gets viable, what I will do on my YouTube channel is I'll just give it out. I'll just give it away.
Well, you talking about Bitcoin, or are you talking about Bitcoin Cash?
Bitcoin Cash. I'll give it away.
Never mind.
It's seriously, Bitcoin Cash is not something. It's not. You have to understand how I see the world, right? As a scientist, for it to catch my interest, it has to be solving an interesting problem. Bitcoin Cash is not interesting. It's a redundancy. It's boring. So, could I cash it out and make some money? Yeah, great. Do I want to go through the headache of doing that? Probably not. So I'll probably just start giving it away on my YouTube channel. And
all right, I'll look forward to that. You can make it rain.
I have a lot of Doge that I'm going to be giving away soon too. I've got a lot of Doge that I'm giving away. I got like 331,000 coins of Doge.
But you're not a Dogenaire yet. You're supposed to have like 3 million Doge.
I know. I need more Doge. I love Doge, guys. I want Doge to succeed above all the other altcoins because it actually has pragmatic value within the meme market.
The meme market? I didn't know there was a meme market, but Brian's a big fan of Doge. Brian, do you have anything to say about that?
No, I like Doge. Are you aware
You're breaking up on us, Brian.
I think he's swamped.
Well, he's happy. Look at him. He's happy.
I know.
I said, did you know we had Jackson Palmer on here?
Yeah, we had Jackson
really?
Palmer on this show, and
cool.
He was telling us the whole story about Doge and everything. So he'll be happy to hear that you're also a big Doge fan.
Oh, I love Doge. I mean, I end my videos with Doge props all the time. I want Doge to win more than Neo or EOS or Ubiq.
All right, let's go on to okay. Now let's go on. Now we've talked about the quote unquote hard fork or fork. Let's go on to the actual SegWit part of Bitcoin. What do you think of SegWit 2x?
I think so. So I have to come at it from two vantage points, right? As a miner, so I mine stuff. I mine coins, and I'm actually creating a mining company. So for me, obviously, I'm kind of stuck between the two because I want bigger block sizes because the bigger block sizes allows me to gain a bigger reward. But at the same time, I'm philosophically constrained. And the reason why I'm philosophically constrained is because the slower transactions are and the slower Bitcoin is, the more stored value it is. And so I have this kind of this love-hate relationship with SegWit and SegWit 2x and all this stuff. And if you were to put a gun to my head and say, hey, SegWit 2x or not, I'd probably go with not. And the reason is because for me, the store of value of Bitcoin is far more important to me than mining Bitcoin, if that makes any sense.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Plus, you have a lot of Bitcoin versus putting a lot of money into mining.
Yep.
Which I have always argued, if you're not a large farm or if you're not really, because of the difficulty, it's almost a losing proposition to mine for a small farm or small farm startup. What are you mining with ASICs, Bitcoin, or are you using GPUs, or how are you doing this?
We're using custom built GPU rigs. I can tell you we're running 1070 NVIDIA 1070s, six of those per rig, and we're doing okay. We're doing okay. We got a lot of them. I don't know if you did you see my office tour where you
Yes,
can see
I did. I was wondering, I saw all those graphic cards.
yeah, we got about like 70 sitting there that we still have to install. So I mean, we're actually building at scale, and so that's something that I'm supremely intrigued about. Is what is the point of viability, number one, but what is the point of sustainability, number two, where we can create a mining company that self-sustains, where we're essentially trading out fiat, which is the electricity costs and the upkeep costs and the rent costs of the office that we have, so that we're trading that essentially for valuable Bitcoin. And for that, what that is an extra layer of, I wouldn't say security, but it's an extra layer of support for our business, as it allows us to continue to increase in Bitcoin like clockwork without really having to mess with it. Would it be more viable to trade and buy Bitcoin and let it go up and you'd make more money? Absolutely, 100%. However, mining is a branch of our company that we have been investing in, and we feel like creating an infrastructure for mining will allow us to pivot, especially since we're using GPU cards. It'll allow us to pivot to any other coins that we would like to mine if the coins that we're currently mining become unviable or too complex for our computational systems to be able to handle. So we have a mining facility that allows us to pivot between different coins as those coins increase. Obviously, for example, we about 2 or 3 months ago, we heavily pivoted to Ethereum because the profitability was so high. But now Ethereum profitability is down, so we're pivoting again. So it's one of those things where we're really feeling out the market as it stands today.
Now, one of my major concerns has always been that we need more on the Bitcoin side, more hashing power outside of the hands of a few individuals. Have you considered doing that for the good of the community, doing some ASIC mining?
Yes. I'm not at liberty to say because I have a couple NDAs that I've signed, but let's just say that I'm connected with one of the largest Chinese mining companies in China, and let's just say one of those individuals just touched down in stateside yesterday, and so we're going to be meeting up soon to talk about what it looks like to extend their mining capabilities out to the southeast region. So I'm super excited about that.
All right, so basically you have these GPUs right now, and you're mining altcoins, obviously. And then is the plan for you to get more Bitcoin with those altcoins? Is that the plan that you're doing? Okay. So you're not mining to keep these altcoins and hold on to them or anything. You're mining the altcoins because GPU is much easier right now. I'm assuming. Yeah. Just going out and getting some graphics cards and sending it up, and potentially you could resell those graphic cards and get some of your money back. And then also just pointing at different altcoins as different price moves. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yes. So if you subscribe, James, do you subscribe to my newsletter?
Yeah, I've been watching you. You.
Okay. So if you subscribe to my newsletter, then you know what we're really doing. And so I'll give you a small hint for those who aren't subscribed to our newsletter. But we're going to be creating our own coin. So there's a double usage of all those machines that we're building. Is it allows us to create test nets. Right now we're spooling up our own nodes. We're forking off of Litecoin because I don't believe in Ethereum because of the application layer, which creates a lot of risk. And so we're looking at creating our own coin, and these rigs will be configured to allow us to do a lot of test net stuff with maybe even pre-mining. So there's a lot of stuff going on. We're super excited about it, but there's a lot of opportunity.
Are you worried about the recent SEC ruling?
No.
With some of the things that you're doing now? Even though you're pre-mining, are you going to do any pre-sale with your coins? That's the thing. That's the thing you got to be careful of, because when you get into the pre-sale, then.
That's why I'm not saying anything.
All right, fair enough. I mean, you could say you're just selling your mining equipment. You pre-sold your mining power. That would be another way, because if you want to kind of get a work around it. But I would say be careful, because obviously they recently put out an open letter. I don't know if you had a chance to read that open letter, but they basically said that the DAO
I did,
was a security. And how do how do you see things now? Because I know you said you're going to try to make your own coin, but you're not worried?
Yeah. This SEC, what most people don't understand is that this SEC ruling has been around for a long time. And I'm sounding kind of like a poo-poo here, but this SEC ruling has been around for a long time. So this came to me as no surprise, number one. But number two, they're essentially retroactively saying, hey, you know, this ruling has been around for a while, but we're now retroactively applying it to, you know, cryptocurrencies. This was something that popped up in 2013. If you Google back to 2000, I distinctly remember in 2013 the SEC was talking about this, and they were already establishing some rules and regulations, at least some frameworks for how to deal with cryptocurrency and the decentralization thereof. And so for me, having waited about 4 years or 5 years since 2013 for this to finally hit mainstream, it's like, we knew this was going to happen. This doesn't change anything. All this really does is create, in my opinion, I think the SEC ruling is fantastic. And the reason is because people who are ICOing really have to think twice. They don't even have to think that. They have to think like 5 times or 10 times before they do this, because they're going to be under the magnifying glass of a governmental regulation authority. And so what I think what this does is it really culls out or kind of separating the wheat from the chaff of all these crappy scam coins that are coming out, and really has people say, hey, can we make a coin that actually fundamentally solves a problem, number one, but doesn't actually have value in the market, number two, and number three, do we have enough of a support mechanism in terms of our funding, in terms of our marketing, in terms of our leadership? Do we have enough of that support mechanism to actually push this out? And so, you know, and dude, guys, I could have created an ICO on Ethereum like literally in a weekend with my CTO. We could have, you know, paired program together, sit down and just knock out an ICO. And that's what people have been doing. And so I think the SEC ruling is actually fantastic, because it creates it really creates some checks and balances within this community to say, hey, look, we're taking this seriously. I think ICOs are really important for the long-term innovation of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency ecosystem. But at the same time, I think it's important for people to really start thinking about, hey, what are we doing? What are we building? Are we solving a problem, and not just trying to do a pump and dump? So I actually think the SEC ruling is a fantastic win for Bitcoin overall.
Excellent. Brian, do you have any questions or anything you want to chime in? He looks.
Well, yeah, no, I was just wondering. Recently, I've been having some hesitations about Lightning networks and SegWit and things like that, and it's the same thing. Or maybe it's not the same thing, but
let's talk about it.
Problem with the application layer of Ethereum. Well, if we're adding more stuff onto Bitcoin, doesn't that give it more points of failure or weakness?
100%.
Okay.
Let's talk about it.
All right.
So let's talk about Lightning Network. So what Lightning Network is essentially a decentralized network that's open source. It was originally published in a white paper by Joseph Poon, and you can never forget Joseph Poon. You can never forget that name now, because it's Poon. So there's a guy, Joseph Poon, who created the Lightning Network open source. And the whole idea is it creates a bi-directional payment channel with multi-signatures. And this is really important. Once you connect a channel from one, let's say, you know, a sender to a receiver, right? You can essentially send that value, that stored transaction, without broadcasting it to the entire Bitcoin network. And so what you said is exactly right. What it is an additional layer on top of the Bitcoin network where value is held in a multi-signature address. The problem, and I think the problem that I have with the Lightning Network is, number one, it's not solving a real problem, in my opinion. So this is just, take this with a grain of salt. It's not solving, in my opinion, a real problem. If you're sending Bitcoin to someone, what you're really transferring is the ownership of value in a signed message. And what that signed message does is updates the blockchain after it's been validated by all the nodes. And so, yes, is it slow? Do we have, if I'm sending, you know, 1 Bitcoin to someone, does it have to validate by all 5,400 nodes? Yes. Is that frustrating? Yes. However, what Lightning Network requires is it requires two things, and I think this is really important, and this is something I'm going to be doing a video on later. It requires two things. It requires, number one, that users are constantly monitoring the blockchain to make sure that after you close that channel, that it actually gets updated back into the Bitcoin network. Number two, as the amount of money that is being pushed through these channels increases, we're talking about millions, hundreds of millions of dollars potentially, you're going to essentially have to trust a third-party application to monitor the blockchain to make sure that we're not having replay issues, we're not having redundancy issues, we're not having loss issues, and so at scale, and this is a hypothesis of mine, so take this with a grain of salt, but the hypothesis of mine is that as the need and desire of the market to increase scalability in Bitcoin transactions in mass, we're going to invariably have to move, I think, to a centralized authoritative centralization that verifies that these transactions are valid. And that scares me. I think Satoshi Nakamoto had it right when he created the code. And yes, is it laborious? Yes. Is it lethargic? Yes. Is it slow? Yes. But I think that was kind of the point. I mean, if you read the title of Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper, it's a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. That's it. He didn't talk about trying to make it like Roger Ver's. Roger Ver's always talking about like, well, I'll make it like credit cards. I don't know if that was the original intent.
Peter, let me chime in a little bit here. When you say third party, is it because and you also mentioned the users have to make sure that everything is valid.
Yeah.
You mentioned the third party. Is it because the users have to have a full node and also monitor the blockchain to make sure that their Lightning transactions are real? And if there's a dishonest person, that they get penalized, because that's the way the Lightning system works, that they get penalized when they don't fulfill their, I guess, channel or whatever they do. And is that the third party you're talking about, like a third party that takes over the monitoring of the nodes and of the channel? Is that what you're talking about? Because you can, as a user, take on all that responsibility, but it's just a matter of the cost of I'm assuming the full Bitcoin node as well as the Lightning node. Is there also a Lightning node as well?
Yes. So there's the Bitcoin nodes and the Bitcoin network, which is the undergirding foundational network. And then there's the Lightning network, which is above it, right? And so, yes, so there's a Lightning network, which really essentially works the same way as Bitcoin, but it uses Bitcoin. So yes, there's nodes involved. Here's the problem. You have to understand fundamentally human behavior. Humans are fucking lazy, okay? And since humans are lazy, what they will do is they'll say, you know what, I don't want to run my own node. I don't want to validate and check all these transactions. I don't want to spend the time doing all this stuff. I'd rather pay a fee and have someone else do it, i.e. exchanges, right? And so that's what exchanges are, huge honeypots that allow people to say, hey, there's millions and millions and millions of dollars in these exchanges. Why don't I just keep hacking it and eventually I'll hack it? And so the problem with the Lightning network is human behavior. It's not the network itself. Is that human behavior is intrinsically lazy in mass. I'm not saying that you, Brian and James, you guys are lazy. I'm just saying that human behavior in mass is fundamentally lazy. They'd rather pay someone else to do it than do it themselves. And what that creates is a fundamental flaw with the entire community of sorts, because all you need is a mass of people to say, you know what? These guys, this startup, they created, a trusted third-party source to validate all the transactions in the Lightning network. So I don't have to. I just pay them a fee to do so. I'm making this up. Then I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. What's 0.5% off 0.5% of $1 million transaction? I'm okay with that. Well, that fundamentally destroys, in my opinion, one of the philosophical tenets of what makes Bitcoin great. It's decentralization. Right? It's decentralization, and you are the primary owner, and you are primarily responsible for your own value. No one else should be. No one else should ever be in control of your value. You are the only one who's solely responsible for that. So I think Satoshi Nakamoto made that abundantly clear. And what we're finding now in this, in this new world of cryptocurrency are exchanges and Lightning networks, and you will find, we'll have 10 more permutations of those in the future as well. And people are intrinsically lazy, and they will buy into those, and they will find all their value to be hacked and stolen from them. And I'm one of the few that will never be, because I fundamentally believe in the principles that Satoshi Nakamoto laid out, which is I should be 100% responsible for my own value. No one else is. And that's why I'm not generally prescribing to Lightning Network right now. I don't think there's enough technical and fundamental analysis behind it to make it viable, in my opinion.
Okay, that's fair enough. But it's nothing to do with the actual network of Lightning, because anybody can. If you want to participate in the Lightning Network, you have it's your responsibility to have a full node, right? With Bitcoin, which this whole USAF thing should have pushed people into getting their own full node anyway, to validate their own transactions. And then on top of that, you just have a Lightning node, which I don't think is much more. I think it's a little bit lighter than having a Bitcoin node. And then you can actually set one up in half a day. Yeah, and then, well, the reason why I kind of like the Lightning, I guess I like it. I'm willing to experiment with it because it is a layer on top of Bitcoin, but it does facilitate a faster transaction because there's no mining involved, obviously. There's no blockchain. You're just signing signatures, and hopefully you're keeping track of the signatures. That's all you're doing. It's just like a big fat ledger, pretty much. You're just like,
that's the operative word. The operative word is that you hope that you're keeping track of it. Most people forget the hope and put trust in other entities.
You can close your channels at any time and just broadcast on the network. And so you can mitigate some of the risk. It's not like people are forced to have their channels open all the time, and then we're all hoping that we're all honest all the time. We can just close the channel, and then we could broadcast it, and then that's how you collectively kind of keep everything honest. But what I do like about it is that it's up to the users to decide and take it upon themselves. But you're right, it's not I wouldn't say it's a network problem or maybe even a protocol problem. It's just a social problem. It's just something that's instilled in everybody. And even if we did just have Bitcoin, people are still stupid enough to cloud mine, to do a Ponzi scheme, to pyramid. So I understand where you're coming from. I understand where you're coming from, but you can't. It seems like you can't change some people. If they're too stupid to realize the benefits, or even take the time to empower themselves with some simple knowledge. Like before, I'm telling you, a week before this, I didn't know what the hell the Lightning Network was. All I did was
it's all good.
I watched a couple videos. I read up a couple paper, and that was about it. And I kind of said to myself, well, it's not a bad idea because it might push people into actually getting full nodes, which I think we need more of. We need more people to do Bitcoin full nodes, and then it should teach people more. I think it may. As stupid people come in, and if they do get fucked, which they probably will, I'm hoping because how I got into this was I got scammed, and that started me on my trail to learning more about how everything works, especially how Bitcoin works. And so if people get sucked into Lightning and they start getting into making sure their transactions are validated and checking everybody else's transaction, maybe that's another rabbit hole to get people into deeper into Bitcoin.
Well, for sure, there's going to be a whole new level and a whole new array of schemes and ways to take people's Bitcoin once the Lightning Network's in existence. It's going to be amazing. And you know what, James, like you, it was because of some of those crypto Ponzi's that really got me into the nuts and bolts. And that's why I made those 3 videos examining them, is because I got scammed. So maybe if Lightning has more scams, and more people get hit, then they'll get more involved, maybe, as your theory suggests.
Yeah, so I run, as a self-proclaimed Bitcoin apologist, I run a thin line, and the thin line is simply this. I want to increase the utility, I want to increase the spread, I want to increase the consumption rates of Bitcoin. I want everyone that I know to buy Bitcoin. I want everyone that I meet to own and transact with Bitcoin. Right? That's like my goal, is to make sure that everyone in the world is using this awesome, awesome technology. But at the same time, I want people to be safe while using it. So there's this fine line of like, dude, buy it. But I don't know really a lot about, just fucking buy it. Just buy it. But at the same time, it's like, I want you to be safe using it. So I also want to educate you about kind of the fundamentals of why this is such a powerful technology. And that line is something that I don't think I've completely figured out how to balance, because I can come off as like super critical when it comes to like, you know, forking or, you know, Lightning or SegWit or these stuff, because I understand the fundamentals and the technicals of these things. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to turn people off because I sound negative about it. It's just I want people to be safe using this technology because it's such a powerful technology. But at the same time, I don't want them to be scammed. I've never been scammed, which I think I've been lucky. But I've never been scammed, and I hope to never be scammed. And so I think we want to grow usage. We want to grow utilitarianism of it. We want to grow consumption of it. But at the same time, we want to also educate people to use it safely. So I think it's a really fine line to be able to draw.
I understand where you're coming from, Peter, and it's tough. It's tough because, you know, a lot of it depends on other people. And unfortunately, there's a lot of stupid people out in the world, and they fall for things like, hey, give me your money and I'll make you $1 million in a couple months. And you know, they fall for it because I think it's just a lack of education. And hopefully, I'm happy there's people like you out there trying to teach other people about this technology and teach a little bit about finance and everything. Another note about Lightning technology, which also draws me to it a little bit, is for people who actually run the Lightning nodes and open channels. There's a way for you to, there's an incentive for people to participate in the network, because it allows you to charge essentially a fee or a rebate, depending on what you want to do. And so
yes,
it does kind of give the user some benefits if they're willing to risk their coin, and ultimately, you know, that's kind of what I like about it, because right now in the situation that I'm in is, although I appreciate the value of Bitcoin going up, but I have to literally wait for the miners to come to some kind of consensus, or if there is any consensus, or if they're going to fork, to finally have my say in the whole process, because the users tend to get the last say. Because when it goes to the market, like this coin, potential ABC coin forking, or even the 2x, you know, 2 megabyte hard fork, me as the owner, a stakeholder of this coin, will finally have a say only at the end of this process of what I want to do. Versus, you know, with the Lightning Network, I actually am already a, you know, participant in it, and I receive the benefits, and I think the users will gain more power in using. In that network anyway. The other thing, what I like about it, is there's a potential to have a shortfall of Bitcoin, because the Lightning Network needs massive users to make this work. You know, if you have like 10 people in it, that's not such a great network. But if you get like 1 million people in it,
right.
even though it's intended for small amounts of Bitcoin, maybe I would say like 0.5. For me personally, I would risk 0.5 Bitcoin per channel. I wouldn't do too many channels, up to maybe 3 channels at most. Should get you enough. Should get you enough connections where potentially you can connect to anybody else potentially. But it causes a good shortfall of Bitcoin, because some of that Bitcoin is going to be tied up to that network, and so you're going to have even less Bitcoin out there in the marketplace, and hopefully that'll drive up. I'm thinking that may also even drive up the demand for Bitcoins on the blockchain itself.
Yeah, that's a concern that I've fiddled with. I don't know if I have a good answer with. So for those that are on the stream and are listening, what James is essentially talking about is the balance of the Lightning Network. And what could happen with the Lightning Network is that if someone receives more than they spend, like on the blockchain, they're going to get more, you know, UTXO entries in the blockchain, and you can do this similarly with Lightning, where the channels will fill up with all this money or coinage, and they can't receive any more money. And this is going to affect routing nodes as well as merchants that are trying to transact within this Lightning Network. And so what the Lightning Network, one of the potential pitfalls of the Lightning Network could be is you're going to have huge scalability issues as well as bottlenecks within the Lightning Network, which is pretty counterintuitive because it's called the Lightning Network, so it should really have bottlenecks.
Yeah.
but I don't know if that's going to be a viable concern. And the reason is we haven't tested this thing at scale just yet. And so since we haven't tested it at scale, we're merely hypothesizing about what we think is going to happen. So I think what we're really going to need to see is whether the Lightning Network can not only stand up on its own, but number two, what happens when we really start throwing shit through it? When we start throwing shit through it, we're going to find out the kinks really fast. I mean, there's nothing like testing something in production. So let's throw it out in production. Let's just do it, see what happens. And if I'm wrong on all my issues with the Lightning Network, I'm totally okay with it. As a scientist, I'm wrong all the time. You kind of have to grow a thick skin when all your peers are telling Peter you're fucking stupid. You just spent,
problem. I'm willing to test it out because that was the whole point of getting SegWit into the blockchain, right? I mean, SegWit was to make Lightning a lot easier. And another thing supposedly that the Lightning Network does is atomic swaps between two different blockchains. And
yes.
I'm also interested in. I'm willing to even procure. I have a little bit of Litecoin, but now I'm willing to procure some more Litecoin. So the benefits of all of the community can have a decentralized exchange. They don't have to risk their coins on exchange when they want to trade or exchange one coin like Bitcoin to Litecoin specifically, because I see I'm seeing a potential for those two coins and how they're being used and how they could be swapped together back and forth when people travel wherever they need to travel. Maybe they have more Litecoin and places don't have that kind of demand. They have more Bitcoin demand, and maybe some other places vice versa. They have more Bitcoin and they want some more Litecoin. You never know, but that's another potential that I see, and that's what attracts me most. It's not necessarily there is some risk, I agree, but if we could put this in production and then we could really test it out, and if it does work and they fix whatever problems and they're able to make it viable, I think there's a good potential, a good future there with the Lightning Network. If
it works, dude, and it increases usage, it increases usage in the general public, dude, I'm all for it. You just have to understand the context in which I come from. As a scientist, I'm skeptical about everything until it's proven viable. So that's my job as a scientist, is to dig into the details of these new ideas to be able to tear them apart rationally and logically and be able to create, as an apologist, argumentation on both sides. So I think, I think I'm more reserved towards skepticism than excitement about Lightning. But man, I would love to be proved wrong. Like, for example, I'd love to be wrong in so many of my assumptions and hypotheses around Bitcoin. Meaning, if I'm wrong, Bitcoin's only going to make me more money. So you can call me wrong all day as long as I'm making money.
Well, then I hope you're really wrong, man. I hope you're so wrong.
I hope I'm wrong too. I don't mind it. I laugh about it, man. I think it's fun. I think it's important for me to understand it so I can tear it apart. But at the same time, if I'm wrong, then guess what? Everybody wins, and we all get our spacesuits on. We all go to the moon.
We all go to the moon. So let's all be wrong. Let's all be totally wrong. And let's go to the moon together, man. All right,
Peter.
I'm all about it.
Peter, there's a really good TED Talk that my friend did. His name is Stuart Firestein. He's a former chair of the biology department at Columbia University.
Okay.
And he's written books about it, The Science of Failure. And it's just what you're talking about.
Awesome.
And he said that's where all the magic is. And you already know that, but he does a really good job talking about it. He's a good guy, too.
I just took a note. I'm a big sticky note guy.
All right. I think
we see behind you.
Conversation here. We're probably
you see on this?
End this show. I don't know if any of the audience has any more questions for Peter, or Brian.
That's where we do all the math.
Is that what that is?
What you see behind me is my big whiteboard in my office where I do calculations and I do whiteboarding sessions and tons of sticky notes. about what. Those sticky notes are about the organizational system and thinking about blockchain as an organizational system. So I'm trying to figure out that chapter in my book right now.
All right, Brian, do you have anything else you want to say to Peter?
No, that's about it. I hope that when you start doing the Litecoin mining, that you'll be looking for some peer-to-peer people by which you can trade the Doge that you can dual mine. I'll be more than happy to purchase some of those from you.
Yo, Brian, I am so glad and so happy to meet you, my friend. I really am. The more people that I get to know within cryptocurrency, the more of a social, positive network we can create. So, man, Brian, thanks so much. I really appreciate meeting you, man. It's cool.
Right on, right on. And when you're here, like you said, reach out to me and we'll link up while you're in the city.
For sure, man. I'll treat you to a beer and maybe I'll tip you some Doge.
That's what Doge is good for, right? Tipping.
Yeah.
That's all it is, man. I'll give you 10,000.
That's what you do in a day, right? Isn't that mining 10,000? When you find a block, it's 10,000 Doge, right? Yeah, he could easily.
You got it,
man.
You got it.
One every minute.
You got it.
A block 10,000 every minute, Doge. Man. Hell. All right, Peter. Peter, tell people where they can find out more about you. I know your links and everything about you is in the notes, but go ahead and tell it to the audience.
Just go to BiteSizeBitcoin.com. If you go to BiteSizeBitcoin.com, you can find out more information on the YouTube. If you're an entrepreneur and you're interested in that stuff, I'm a huge entrepreneur. Love building new startups, love building new technology. So if you look at the bottom of the I guess the stream in the show notes, you can find my LinkedIn and see the startups I built and stuff that I'm into. But yeah. The thing that I care about most, guys, is just come be part of what James Bond is doing and interact with him. He's a smart dude. I don't even know what the fuck he looks like, but he seems like a really cool dude. And you know, join in what I'm doing over at BiteSizeBitcoin, man. We're growing a great community. I want everyone to win. I want everyone to grow and succeed. I've been very blessed and very fortunate to invest in Bitcoin and when it was $2. So I'm speaking from a position that might seem unfair, but at the same time, I've benefited greatly from it. And I want everyone else to win with me because I'm so excited about this, guys. So excited about Bitcoin. I've been spending the last 3.5 years studying it. Writing a book on it, and so I just if you want to take anything as something to kind of solidify your confidence, you're listening to a scientist, and I'm not always right, but damn it, I hope I'm right about Bitcoin. So,
well said, Peter. Appreciate that. So this concludes this episode. Thanks for the audience and everyone in the chat for tuning in. Until next time, everyone. Bye bye. All right.
Later.